Sounds like Sophia has absorbed a little of my twisted genius. Mommy dearest may finagle her way back into the house yet.
Honey, I'm home.
Where the hell have you been? Oh, well, this is an unpleasant surprise.
Welcome to week 126 of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara.
Hello.
We finished episode 610, which originally aired Monday, December 22nd, 1986. So we're in Christmas week. Mm-hmm. And let me just see, do we have preemption this week? No, not for Christmas. The next preemption will be next Thursday for New Year's Day. So we have 6 full exciting episodes, which I imagine the Gina storyline will ramp up to some extent. And Ted and Haley probably too. Cruz and Eden kiss at Buzz's. And Eden says when he's ready to come find her, she'll be waiting for him. And at the end of the episode, Cruz shows up at the Capwell house and tells Eden he loves her. He says, we may not have a future together, but I'd like to believe that we still do. And then he leaves. And Eden grins, thinking this is a step forward for them.
Yeah, we'll see. I anticipate that they will come together. And then Victoria will reveal the paternity of her baby.
Or just that she's
pulled apart.
Pregnant is probably, that's 2 reveals in one. So 1 reveal first, and then tension.
Yes.
And she hasn't slept with Mason, so there's no real way she could now say it could be Mason's, because it's been too long, I think. So she's not thinking ahead, really.
But this is going to be, I think, quite long and drawn out. That's what I'm anticipating. So I think keeping an eye on when the different sweeps are is probably going to give us a timeline for this.
I mean, just knowing the general ebb and flow of soaps, Cruz and Eden might sleep together at Christmas or New Year's. And then, like the next day, Victoria will return, or Mason will reveal to Eden, Victoria's pregnant. I found out from her agent or something. So,
or Pearl will spill to someone.
That's true. He's still a wild card. He might confide in Julia, maybe. Julia might tell Mason. Mason would tell Eden.
Or we do our famous thing where he's discussing it, maybe even with Victoria on the phone, and there's someone lurking behind a curtain or something. Yeah,
in the middle of the Capwell atrium. Gina tries to get Lily to come with her to Antigua because she needs another witness to Cece and Sophia being together, but Lily refuses. Cece tells Gina, I've got to go to New York on a business trip. So Gina plays along. Gina also visits Sophia and finds her packing and also plays along with that. Lily tries once again to get Brick to allow her to help to rebuild. And he says, well, if you want to do something good with your life, why don't you leave town and join a real convent? Ted and Eden talk about Haley. Eden tells Ted it's obvious that they love each other. Gina tries to get Haley to come to Antigua with her as her witness, and Haley also declines on that one. Ted and Eden tell Sophia that they've discovered that Gina knows the plan to go to Antigua and she's going to ruin everything. But Sophia laughs and reveals that actually is her plan for Gina to waste 2 or 3 days jetting down to Antigua while she and Cece have a nice time in the Capwell guest house. Ted gives Haley the ring a few days early. And she gives him the tires she bought for his Jeep, and that's when she finds out that he sold his Jeep to buy the ring. I think yesterday I said it was earrings, just because Sophia said they're beautiful when she looked in the box. So I thought, I guess it's not a ring, it must be earrings. But now, clearly it's a ring from when we see it. So
yeah.
And then Haley shows him the bed that Gina bought for them. And they had already made plans to go out to a movie, but I wonder if they'll both be thinking about that bed while they're out and end up in it at the end of the evening.
Yeah, I'm really hoping. We've talked about how rocky their relationship has been and how they seem to keep missing each other somehow in their communication. So I'm hoping this will bring them together.
Maybe it'll be the same as the Cruz and Eden thing. They'll get together, and then the next day, or whenever it happens, she'll find out that Ted knew about the fake kidnapping plot and back away again.
Yeah, that's possible.
So, I guess the Antigua thing, I don't know how big that is. Like, if she finds out that Ted knew that Cece and Sophia weren't really in Antigua, I don't know if she'd really be that pissed off, because she's more pissed off with Gina over the whole situation. So it's probably going to be the kidnapping thing.
I'm actually trying to remember why it is they told Ted about the kidnapping plot.
Yeah, I know. Like, the only reason I can see from the writer's standpoint is to put tension between Haley and Ted, because really, plot-wise, I mean, I guess you don't want Ted to be freaking out that his sister's been kidnapped, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it just seems like for a plot like this, you probably want it to be a need-to-know basis. And I'm not quite seeing why Ted needed to know.
Yeah, especially given the fact they told him in the atrium. Gina tells Mason she's flying to LA to do some Christmas shopping. And, of course, on the inside, Mason is smirking about that. Cece and Sophia start their night together at the Capwell guest house while Gina waits at the airport. Her flight is delayed, and she, I guess, has some time to think, and then goes up to the clerk and says, when did the Capwell jet depart if, the weather's so bad? And he says, oh, the jet hasn't moved all day. And Gina puts two and two together that maybe she's been had, and she may be walking into that Capwell guest house next episode at the worst possible time.
I'm rooting for her to do that. I mean, it seems like that's the setup.
Yeah, I mean, it's $1 million. It's nothing to Cece. So,
Yeah.
Other than not wanting Gina to get $1 million. He's already given her $100,000 for a month. So, we'll see if they can hide that from her. We've been at Santa Barbara Airport and unable to take off. Not for Santa Barbara weather, but for San Francisco weather. So,
yeah.
Although we were told by someone we were visiting in Ventura that, never fly out of Santa Barbara. So it must not just be San Francisco that's the issue there.
That made the trip a lot more expensive.
Yeah, that one night at the last minute at some country club resort. That was our most expensive night in a hotel ever in history.
Yeah. And if we hadn't both been sick, we probably would have just camped out at the airport.
Oh, that's right, too. Because it was the end of our trip. Julia and Mason discuss their relationship, and she reiterates that he should see Victoria, and you could even back out of our agreement if it starts to become weird for you to have an ongoing relationship while we're doing this. And Mason doubles down and signs a second unasked for agreement, saying that he will see things through to the end. So, one wonders if Mason is falling a little bit for Julia, because this whole time during the conversation, he's like, Victoria just reminded me of Mary, and blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of like, seemed to me to be telling Julia he was going to not pursue Victoria, which I just feel is not going to be true. So, because if she comes back to town with being pregnant and doesn't pursue Mason, and Eden and Cruz want nothing to do with her, who's she going to interact with? I feel like she needs to keep interacting with Mason to re-cement herself into Santa Barbara when she comes back from LA. And that is it for a Monday episode. Not too bad, setting up things for Christmas week. And oddly enough, we had the full cast credits again today, 2 days in a row. But this time, they have the missing people from that I thought would be credited last time. We have Jeep Man is John Otrin. Lars was Kevin Sorbo, and both of these people only appeared yesterday. And then Brandon was played by Brandon Call, who also was in yesterday's episode, wrapping gifts with Gina. So that's interesting. That's the first time I've ever seen the delayed, day player credits.
Yeah.
But maybe they messed up yesterday, and contractually they had to do it again. And maybe that's why they did it right away. You rarely have 2 credits in a row.
Plus,
two credits.
With some of these old ones we're watching, it's every once in a while it's not always clear whether they've just tacked on some other credits to the end.
That's true. I mean, we do at least get, they have 5 or 6 different backgrounds they show in the credits. So I think in this case, if they'd used the same one 2 days in a row, I would have noticed, like this episode, the background over the credits was the harbor with the sailboats visible. And yesterday it was, or let's say Friday, it was, it says Marina, which I think is the same shot. So maybe someone just tacked the 609. But then in that case, why didn't they have clean credits on the 609 and why they get cut off right after Kelly? So, good question. All right, that is it for episode 610. We'll be back after we watch the Tuesday episode of Santa Barbara. See you then.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to episode 611 of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara.
Hello.
Episode 611 originally aired Tuesday, December 23rd, 1986. Ted tells Haley that the Antigua flight was a trick, and she's angry that he didn't tell her as soon as he found out. Sadly, their wonderful evening has now been ruined, and by the end of it, they get into bed and Haley has her back turned to him. Well, we didn't expect it to go south that quickly.
Yeah, but, something will probably happen to improve it again, and then it'll go south again.
Gina shows up at the Orient Express and discovers that Cece and Mrs. Capwell have reservations for later. Gina says, well, guess who's coming to dinner? She phones Brandon, but Mason answers, so she pretends to be Brandon's teacher and asks Brandon to get his camera ready. Brandon has a Polaroid camera. So Gina arrives, borrows the camera, and bursts into the guest house, photographing Sophia's bed to catch Cece and Sophia in the act. And when the lights come on, she has a number of photos of Mason and Brandon's teddy bear in the bed. She then hears a car peeling out and rushes off to chase Cece and Sophia away. Meanwhile, Cece and Sophia come out of, another door, I think, that I've never seen before, and laugh about how Gina is following Ruben and Rosa on a wild goose chase. And when Gina finally returns hours later, she says she had followed the boat all the way out to the Capwell Casino oil rig before she realized it was not Cece and Sophia she was following. So we had a name check yesterday, or the other day, of KUSB, and now we have a name check of the casino. So still, I don't know if it's operating though, right? Like no one's running. I think they shut it down, but it's still in play somehow in the universe of Santa Barbara. Later, Mason discovers Gina hanging out at the Christmas tree, which is in the Capwell living room. And Mason says, you'd be hard-pressed to find something under there for you. And Gina gets very angry and shouts, I'm going to win! So this was not a good day for Gina. She didn't get her $1 million.
But we did actually get exposed to a more tender side of Gina this episode. We saw her interact with Brandon. And that's always really nice. That always brings out her kind of warm maternal side. And we also had a really nice story from Haley, reminiscing about how she had no money when she was growing up. And Gina was the one who occasionally would send her special gifts. So we haven't really, I think, seen that side of Gina since way back when Summer was part of the picture. And speaking of name check, one of the things I always wish soap operas did would maybe name check some of their old characters a little bit more, and I'd love to just hear even just a passing reference to Summer.
Well, we'll see how Gina's Christmas goes. At least, Haley doesn't seem to be angry with her. Lily's slightly annoyed with her, but at least she has 2 family members to spend time with. Speaking of Christmas, I was just thinking yesterday. Courtney's living at the Capwell mansion, right? We never see her around. They never talk about Christmas with her. And thinking all the way back to Thanksgiving, I don't think she was in that little impromptu Thanksgiving dinner. So it's like she's living in an alternate universe in the same town.
Yeah, I'm just going to assume that maybe she's gone back to Boston for Christmas.
Oh, that's true. Grant didn't die, did he? No, Grant's alive,
No.
right? He just went back home. I don't know why I thought he died. Gus seems to be angry most of the episode with Carolyn and Lionel. He kicks them out of their own house so that he and Alice can spend time together at the Lockridge place. And Paul shows up, and Alice freaks out when she catches a glimpse of his badge. When Lionel and Carolyn return, Lionel says, "Oh, that used to happen months ago. I guess you turning up has really stirred things up in her." And of course, Gus takes it the wrong way. He's really basically twisting everything Lionel says in this episode against him.
Well, I think he's quite threatened by Lionel because Lionel, of course, has adopted Alice, and he's been playing this sort of paternal role. And I think Gus, is trying to reclaim some of his position with Alice.
I think Lionel has pretty much, he said, "Oh, she can stay here as long as she wants," implying that she could go live with Gus after that. But Gus is like coming in as if Lionel wants to take Alice from her. So then Alice runs away, and she ends up encountering a police officer at some point during her runaway and runs further away. Then Gus, out of nowhere, accuses Caroline of knowing where Alice was the whole time she was in the hospital. And I think from Carolyn's expression, that may somehow be true. So maybe this is the secret that Gus alluded to a couple of days ago. Something that Carolyn wouldn't want Lionel to find out. So how Gus knows that, I'm not sure.
It's a pretty damning secret if it is true, and certainly sheds Carolyn's behavior in a very different light.
And that is it for this Tuesday episode. There are just these 3 threads that ran through. Tomorrow is Christmas Eve, so we'll see how things shake up, see who comes home for Christmas. And we had credits again today, and they were the same as yesterday, including that one character that left last week that we wouldn't know about it until we'd find out about it. And Brandon Call is credited as a day player. Sorry, Brandon Capwell is credited as Brandon Call. So that's it for Tuesday. And we've got a bit of sad news to report. A couple of days ago, it was announced that Joe Marinelli passed away. He will be playing Bunny Tagliati in the future. And just a couple of hours ago, someone posted on Facebook that Charles Bateman has passed away, our final C.C. Capwell to survive of the actors who played C.C. So that's a shame. And we'll see you after we watch episode 612 of Santa Barbara. See you then.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We've watched episode 612 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Wednesday, December 24th, 1986. And surprisingly, they really diverted away from Christmas to a large extent. Except for a little scene at the Lockridges discussing Christmas. They are probably going to get into full swing with Christmas in tomorrow's episode. Carolyn wonders if Alice ran away because Gus was as insensitive with her as he is with Carolyn. Jane tells Gus that she can't really imagine Gus with Alice's mother, because, as you recall, they grew up together with the woman that Alice thinks is her mother as their maid. I forget what her name is, Hallie or something like that.
I don't remember.
Gus, of course, needs to cover up the moment for the fact that Carolyn is Alice's real mother, but he seems generally annoyed the whole time with her every time we see him. So he may just spill the beans, I think, someday.
Yeah.
But today he says, opposites attract. Gus says that he remembers Jane when she was a baby, and Jane wonders why Gus seems angry with Carolyn. The LAPD arrives to tell Victoria that all of her business manager's clients have had their money stolen by him. And she is now broke. Pearl, Brian, and Jane find Alice sleeping at Buzz's because Pearl recalls that one time that he and Kelly and Alice hid out there after escaping from the Institute. Paul arrives, followed by Gus, who is called by Jane. And when Gus arrives, he sees Brian hugging Alice and freaks out and goes to attack Brian. Alice tells Gus that she owes Brian an apology, and he does apologize. It says, I've got a lot to get used to. And I think, just trying to get my head around this, he is still, as Lionel had mentioned in the last episode, very in the black and white animosity mindset that he was when he went into prison, which I guess was only 6 years ago, but it makes it sound like it was the 60s, the way they talk about it. But maybe we've just forgotten what 1986 was like, or 1980. Gus tells Caroline that Lionel doesn't seem to care for him, and then Gus says that Lionel's too possessive of both Alice and Caroline. Now Caroline, of course, explains that he's Alice's guardian. It makes sense. And Gus starts to recall the time that he and Caroline ran out on Cece, and Gus reminds her of that. He was waiting on his motorcycle for her when she left Cece. I don't know if we're going to have flashbacks of young Caroline and young Gus at any point. I guess they're not. It wasn't long enough ago, really, that it was. Well, I guess Alice is 18 or something, right? So that was probably almost 20 years ago. Maybe we will see something like that. But in the past, we've seen Sophia playing young Sophia, so still the same actress. So.
I think it depends on how deeply they want to dig into that aspect of the storyline, or whether they'll move quickly on to other things as the plot steamrolls forward.
I mean, I still have this vague thought that maybe Jane is Cece's daughter, and that's something would be better shown in flashbacks than just someone saying, "Hey, remember that I know that Cece's Jane's father," or something. Alice tells Gus she's looking forward to everyone being there for Christmas. Gus visits Cece and thanks him for helping him get out of jail. Basically says it's just a courtesy call. Cece says it was Caroline's idea, and don't come to me for a reference, because you're a quitter. Of course, referring to the fact that Gus had all these prize fights lined up when he vanished. Cece asks if he's leaving town. In that Cece way, it sounds like he's telling him to leave town. Gus says he's staying in town, and they should just stay out of each other's way. And Cece does not have a happy look on his face when Gus leaves. So, I don't know if they're going to inadvertently get in each other's way a lot from this. Jane and Brian discuss childhood Christmases, and Pearl gives Brian a gift and asks him not to leave Santa Barbara. There's a lot of talk about Brian leaving Santa Barbara and a lot of people who want him to stay. If he does stay, I don't know if he would maybe pair up with Jane. She's single and he's clearly not interested in Alice.
Yeah, I still think there's a bit more possible with the Brian, Alice, and Paul. Maybe triangle.
Yeah, Paul seems to just dip in and out of scenes. There's no real sense that some storyline is really starting with him, or that he's really that deeply involved in a storyline. So,
yeah,
which sometimes happens. But you've got so many peripheral characters. Some of them need to be the main characters.
Yes.
Cece tells an ecstatic Pearl that he can talk to Kelly on Christmas. First, of course, Cece reminds him that he pulled the wool over Cece's eyes by getting Lionel his property back, but he says Kelly will phone you on Christmas. Presumably to tell him, if I do come back, we won't be dating. I've met a prince. Pearl hears about the Victoria business manager on the radio, and he clearly recognizes that name from that time when he and Victoria were chummy. And he is worried that this might bring Victoria back to Santa Barbara. Now, I'm reading that last bit all into the one little look that he gave to nobody in particular at the Orient Express. Julia meets with a doctor friend who she convinces to give her some tests to make sure she can get pregnant. Although, he basically indicates normally you'd wait a year before doing these tests, but she really wants to make sure there's nothing wrong with her because it's been a month at least, if not a little longer, and she is not pregnant yet. After the tests, he says, well, we can do exploratory surgery to make sure there are no blockages. And Julia tells Mason, and he says he'll stick with her during that wait for the test results and the surgery. And then Mason mentions that Victoria lost all her money, and he had counseled Victoria that she should sue the business manager even if he's out of the country, so that if he ever returns, there'll be something on file and he'll be arrested. And Victoria seems a bit hesitant for a sec, says, oh, what are your exact interests in Victoria? She goes, never mind, I'll represent her. But then later, Julia has a fantasy about Mason being in love with her. Mason comments to Cece that Jeffrey has been playing piano all morning. Jeffrey does not appear in this episode.
We do hear the piano.
Every time there's a scene in the Capwell house, we hear the piano playing in the background. Mason says as DA, he's got to step back a little from this kidnapping plan, and he should hand everything over to McGinnis, who Cece then meets. And McGinnis says he's on his way to Switzerland tomorrow to check things out at the location where Kelly is. And Cece insists they don't tell Kelly about the fake kidnapping. She has to think it's real. This seems like a really bad idea because, first of all, she's the one who's on the run. She should be given some say in how things are going and be aware of all the plans.
Plus, she's the one who's been traumatized so many times. She's had a serial killer after her. That weird thing with the baby doll in, the first season. She lost her memory and got stuck in a ghost town with Nick for a while.
Dr. Renfro.
Yeah.
Dr. Rawlings. So that's not going to traumatize Kelly when a bunch of men burst in to kidnap her.
Yeah.
And then Cece says, I wish Jeffrey would stop playing that damn piano. I may be paraphrasing. So this is interesting. I did not remember that Jeffrey plays the piano. But I skipped ahead to some January episodes because I was looking for a particular scene. And first thing I clicked on at random was a scene of Jeffrey playing the piano. So I guess that was his thing. I just had no memory of that. No. Maybe we'll find out he's a concert pianist. Certainly didn't show up in Mason's background check. So that's it for this Wednesday episode. There was surprisingly a lot. Yesterday, the summary was very brief. This time there were a lot of little nuanced things. So tomorrow's Christmas. So will we see Dame Judith Anderson as Minx? I hope so. The whole Lockridge family will have a nice Christmas, and Gina, of course, will have a horrible Christmas, as the Capwells are intent on making this experience a nightmare for her. All right, we'll be back after we watch episode 613 of Santa Barbara. See you then.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We watched episode 613 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Christmas Day, Thursday, December 25th, 1986. And the number one song in the U.S. is The Bangles with Walk Like an Egyptian. And the number two song in the U.S. is Everybody Have Fun Tonight by Wang Chung. And number one in the UK, The Final Countdown by Europe. Number one movie is The Golden Child, with other notable movies still in the top. Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, Crocodile Dundee, and Three Amigos. And today, unfortunately, an Iraqi Airways Flight 163 was hijacked and subsequently crashed in Saudi Arabia. And I figured out why Christmas is a day late here. We're still one day behind because of the preemption last Monday due to the Iran-Contra hearing. So that is why We are seeing the December 24th episode today on December 25th. And that's presumably we will see the Christmas episode tomorrow on Boxing Day. Sophia worries about the kidnap plan backfiring.
I think she has reason to. I'm on record for saying that.
Cece says Mason knows what he's doing. Brick invites Cruz over for a Christmas dinner, since Cruz looks like he plans to work through the night at Buzz's. Instead, they come up with an idea to put on a Christmas dinner for people who can't afford it. And Eden happens to be eavesdropping, and she offers the Orient Express kitchen. After Cruz says, oh, my beach house is just down the beach. I could do cooking there. So everyone's on board with that. So they're getting folding chairs and setting them up at Buzz's throughout the episode. So I don't know if they end up doing that every year. I can't recall this. Julia checks herself into the clinic for her exploratory surgery, and Mason sees her off. She keeps insisting he go home to be with his family, but he keeps being there, and while she's in surgery, he decorates her room for Christmas. And the nurse comes in and is surprised. She says, this is the first time in 25 years someone's managed to sneak a Christmas tree past me. And the nurse is played by Jerry Seinfeld's mother, Liz Sheridan, not his real mother, his mother on the show Seinfeld. And we may remember that she previously played Nurse Greta Bailey in episodes 214, 215, and 216. So I don't know if she's playing the same character. This seems like a private clinic, because it's a completely different type of hospital room than what we've seen before at the hospital we're more familiar with. And it sort of sounds like this would be a specialized clinic. So maybe she's taken a job with this private clinic and she's playing the same character. Lily tells Mason she thought they'd see more of each other living in the same house, and he does not really respond all that kindly to her. He says, your loyalty to Gina cost my sister her freedom. So I get the feeling that Lily does not feel welcome in the Capwell house.
And truly, we, considering she was such a pivotal part of the storyline, only a month or so ago, she really hasn't had much to do lately. So I feel like she's is in fact becoming less and less part of the Capwell house.
Mm-hmm. Ted finds Haley making the bed, and he says Rosa should do that. And she says, well, I don't feel right about having my former boss making my bed for me. She says to Ted, Gina does something, and immediately I am Gina's niece, not your wife. I will be your wife. I won't be your wife until you treat me like one. Until then, I'm nothing but a roommate. Sophia and Cece tell Ted that they want to put together a suite of rooms in the East Wing for Ted and Haley to live in. Mm. So this is interesting. Do we know about the East Wing? We know about the East Wing on Dark Shadows that was locked off for all those years, but this is intriguing that little hallway we've seen with all the bedrooms maybe leads to another wing that we have never seen.
Now, what wing was it that was kind of locked off when Channing had died?
That was just his bedroom, which is like across from Eden's or Mason's room. Yeah, and that's like on the left side of that hallway that we see. So, Ted declines, and not only that, he gives Cece a check for his first month's rent. So, Cece begrudgingly takes it because he really wants Ted to just feel like he's, in the family home and not a renter. And then Ted tells Sophia that Haley doesn't want the rings. And this is where I figured out what exactly is going on with the pluralization of rings. Because when we see it, a nice close-up of it, it actually looks like one of those things where you take the engagement ring and the wedding ring and kind of join them together into a double ring. And so that's why they've been talking about them, plural, this whole time.
Yeah.
And that's why I originally thought it was earrings. So now it all makes sense. We've had several things that came clear today with the, day late thing, the rings thing, and then another thing about buzzes later on, which we will talk about. Mason refuses to take the Christmas gift that Gina tries to give him. Now, this whole episode is about people snubbing Gina. Ted refuses Gina's gift also. He tells her to stay out of his marriage. We'd be better off if you just dropped dead. Gina tells Lily the only reason Mason ever was with her was because he really wanted to get to Gina. Lily tells her not to count on her being there for Christmas. So one at a time, people are knocking off Gina this episode. Gina finds Brandon watching It's a Wonderful Life, but she turns off the TV because she finds it depressing. She tells Brandon they're leaving for a ski trip together, but he doesn't want to be all alone with her when the Capwell house is so much more fun and has all the presents. He asks Cece, do I really have to go off alone with Mom? And Cece says, no, of course not. You're staying here for Christmas. This is where the family will be. And then he warns Gina that he has sole custody of Brandon and never to take him out of this house. He says, why don't you go to the mountains alone? With any luck, you'll be buried in an avalanche. Gina says, nobody wants me here, and runs out the door. She actually does this on 2 separate occasions in this episode from the various snubbings. Mason finds her drinking alone at the Orient Express. And Gina says, this is the worst day of my life. Nobody wants me. Everybody hates me. Mason says, I don't hate you. I just don't like you very much. And he leaves her some money for her next drink. I think perhaps people may see where this is going. Lily is eating alone at the Orient Express. When the entire Capwell family comes in, Cece, Sophia, Brandon, Haley, and Ted, Sophia wants to invite her to sit with them. And Cece agrees. Gina overhears them, because she's at the bar, and sees that her whole family, including her niece and her daughter, are eating with the Capwells. And she thinks, oh, this is wonderful, we're all together, and gives Brandon a hug. But Cece drags her off to the side and says that she is under no circumstances to join them. And Gina runs out. Ted gives Haley the rings back and says he wants her to wear them. She says she wants to wear them too, and both agree not to fight anymore. Cruz hears someone crying while working away at Buzz's and finds Gina sitting on the bench that we've never seen before. That's actually quite far in front of the Christmas tree lot, so it's maybe an area of the beach or waterfront we haven't quite seen. She says, why don't you send me away like the rest of them? And he says, why don't you come into Johnny's and I'll make you a sandwich? And this is the first time, I think, we've heard this is the new name for Buzz's. It's not Amy's, as I had theorized. It's Johnny's.
Actually, I think Brick mentioned it from the very beginning when he was going to buy it. He said,
well,
I'll name it after Johnny.
Oh, okay. I was typing away during that conversation, and I may have missed that, so I've been calling it Buzz's this whole time. But it is now Johnny's officially. Well, I guess it was before. Instead of taking him up on his offer, she runs down the beach a ways, or I don't think it's a beach because it's where the boats tie up. I think it's more of a dock area. But anyway, we've never seen the waterfront, of course. We're all just imagining what it looks like. She runs off, and she's leaning against a beam, presumably at a neighboring building, and says, "No one would miss me. I would be better off if I'd never been born." And that's when she's struck by lightning. She falls to the ground, and when she wakes up, the entire screen has taken on an interesting hue, and for the rest of the episode, It's a Wonderful Santa Barbara Life will be playing out. When she wakes up, she encounters Becky, who says she is her guardian angel, come to Earth to earn her wings. Now, Becky is played by Peggy Pope, who I remembered as Carol David's mother on Soap. Carol David was the girl that Jody was dating, possibly married to, and had a baby with. So, at first, Gina assumes that Becky knows her name from having seen her Mrs. Capwell's Cookies commercial. She does not believe the entire guardian angel story at all. But when she goes back to Johnny's, first of all, it's completely intact and not burned down at all, and Cruz and Brick don't recognize her. And inside, she can see Amy Perkins. We don't see Amy Perkins. Becky says that wish Gina Becky says that Gina wished she had never been born, and this is what it would be like if she'd never been born. Lily wouldn't have been born, and Amy would never have been killed. And then Gina asks, do you know Amy? And she says, she lives among us. It's probably the last time we'll hear about Amy on the show. Gina goes to the Capwell mansion and insists to Cece that she is Mrs. Capwell. But of course Cece and Sophia don't know her and kick her out, but she demands to see Brandon. And Cece says, I don't know who Brandon is. And Becky explains that in this timeline, Brandon was adopted to some random couple in Mexico, and Cece has never been able to find him, even though he's been searching for years. Cruz and Eden show up together, and Becky says that since Gina wasn't around to pull the plug on Cece last year, Eden never married Kirk Cranston, and she and Cruz are happy. Gina then visits Mason, only to hear Mary's voice come out of the wherever they're living. Might be the guest house. Of course, Becky reminds her that the only reason Mary and Mason broke up was because of Mason's affair with Gina, so she never married Mark McCormick and never ended up on the roof of the Capwell Hotel that fateful day. So everyone seems to be better off, other than Brandon perhaps, because Gina was never born. And Becky ends the show by saying, it isn't too late. We have a new mission now, to endow you with a brand new soul.
This was so tiresome. It went on, and it sounds like it's going to keep going on, so I don't know.
Well,
I'm glad one of us is watching it, I guess.
This last year when Mason was visited by the three ghosts, he did actually mention that a day or two ago in a conversation to Julia, saying it kind of wore off. So we will see if Gina has a remarkable turnaround, and perhaps she will willingly give the tape to Cece so that Kelly can come home. Thoughts, or you don't care? And this is the last episode for one of our cast members. Once again, it was not mentioned in this show. I don't know if you can guess who it is, but perhaps at some point someone will say, so-and-so has left town. And that's it for our Thursday episode. We'll watch the Christmas episode on Friday, December 26th, episode 614. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 614 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Friday, December 26th, 1986, and takes place on Thursday, December 25th, 1986. I guess our New Year's Day will probably be skewed a little bit too until they realign some things due to those Iran-Contra hearings last week. As you'll recall, Gina is having an It's a Wonderful Life adventure. Gina asks Becky if any good came out of her time on Earth. And Becky shows Gina that Kelly was executed for killing Dylan Hartley, because in this altered timeline, without Gina in it, the presidential suite would never have had a camera set up in it. Now, while I was typing this, I do recall that Dylan's gun would be lying there if Gina hadn't taken it, so it's a little suspicious that wasn't enough to give her a self-defense claim. She also shows us what Haley would be up to nowadays, and she's basically fallen in with a bad crowd and will end up as a junkie in the streets.
With Roxanne's look.
Yes, that's right. Lots of hair. And then we find Brandon, forced to sell watches to tourists in the streets of Mexico by an adoptive mother who's just using him to make money. Gina wakes up to find Eden and Cruz around her, and we find that they dragged her back to Johnny's from the edge of the pier where we found her, where we saw her get struck by lightning. So that pole she was grabbing onto was at the edge of the pier. It's no wonder I didn't recognize it as any building that we had previously known. And then for just a second, she thinks Cruz and Eden got married, but then she remembers that was in the well, let's call it the dream. I don't know. She runs home to see Brandon, and she tells him there's a big chest full of presents in the living room, and then tells Cece and Sophia that she wants to wipe the slate clean. And they say she can do that by turning over the tape. But she counters, saying that this forced separation between Cece and Sophia has whetted their appetite for each other. Then she tries to tell Haley how miserable her life would have been if not for Gina. But Haley doesn't quite take it the right way and sees it as a way for Gina to try and make herself seem more important.
She thinks she's being manipulated yet again.
Mm-hmm. So this It's a Wonderful Life isn't quite turning out the way we expected it would. Minx and Lionel arrive at the hospital to see Julia. Mason is already there, and Minx figures out that Mason is the father that Julia has selected for her baby. Not unexpectedly, she's not too pleased by this. Lionel had tried to motion for Julia not to say anything. And Julia sticks up for Mason, saying, "Believe me, he's been perfect." And then Minx says, "You are talking as if you are considering him for a husband." And Julia says, "No, it's just an arrangement." But I think Minx is,
I think Minx is onto something.
Yeah. It's too bad we're only going to see her 3 more times next year. Her hair looked a little darker, too. She was wearing a hat all episode, but it looked kind of like not quite brown, but definitely not blonde either. So more of a reddish.
I almost wondered if she had on a wig or something.
Mason helps Julia check out and takes her to the Orient Express, where she gives him a gift, which is a pair of cufflinks inscribed Daddy, and he says he'll wear them discreetly. Gina arrives to tell Mason she wants to pay him back for everything that she did to him and Mary, telling him it's her fault that Mary ended up where she did. She says, "I had a revelation. I want everyone to like me again." After she leaves, Mason looks at the camera and says, "Again?" Maybe it wasn't quite to camera, but Ted and Haley kiss under the mistletoe that's hanging over the Capwell threshold. Johnny's is finished serving food, and hang on, actually I deleted something. Hang on. Oh no, I deleted an entire segment somehow. Let me just see if I can wing it. Ted, this is even before. Yeah, this should even be before here. Ted, Cruz, Eden. I didn't see Brick actually. Are all serving food at Johnny's, and so is Lionel and I believe Carolyn. Minx arrives and does duty behind the cranberry sauce counter. And then Cece and Sophia show up, and Cece's not happy to see Lionel and Minx there. But Eden says that she would like it if they all stayed. And so Minx and Cece begrudgingly agree to stay, working in the same room as each other, and wish each other a Merry Christmas. And later that night, Johnny's is finally all tidied up, thanks to all the helpers. And Cruz and Eden are left alone to eat leftovers for dinner. And Cruz asks her to get some champagne. So they are having a moment. Lionel and Carolyn leave Johnny's and board the Luckridge yacht. Carolyn says she can't stay. She has plans with Alice and Gus, but gives them a quick call. And Alice says that she and Gus have plans alone. So Carolyn says, "Well, I can stay, I guess." And they end up kissing. It's not quite clear if they're still trying to avoid each other because of what Carolyn promised to Jane, or if that's off. Robin Wright returns to Santa Barbara as we see Kelly Capwell on the phone in Switzerland. She has finished filming The Princess Bride, and she looks like she's been revitalized somewhat. She had a lot of energy in her scenes that were shot all by herself on the other end of the phone. Gina returns to the Capwell mansion in time to witness the Capwell family gathered around the phone, taking turns wishing Kelly a Merry Christmas. And at the end, Gina takes the phone and tells Kelly she's sorry and runs out. Outside, she runs into Becky, who tells her a person ain't nothing without friends. I don't know why I put an accent on it. I don't know if Becky had an accent. I might be thinking of Carol David from Soap. The bit that was missing also had a scene where... oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry, I'm going to have to add that all back in. After Cece and Minx wish each other a Merry Christmas, Gina and Brandon come in. And Gina says, "What can I do to help?" And Cruz says she can sweep up. And when she grabs a broom, Cece says, "Oh, well, which needs her broom?" And then Gina takes the plate from a homeless woman, and it is Becky from her dream. But we see Becky dematerialize after she leaves Johnny's. Now we'll go back to this bit. Gina runs into Becky again, who tells her a person ain't nothing without friends. And then Becky vanishes again. Gina returns to the Capwell mansion with the tape to give to Cece and Sophia. Gina comes in and says, "I came back to talk to you." And Cece says, "Just go upstairs." Gina says, "Please don't be mean to me. My whole life's been turned around today." And Cece says, "You heard my daughter on the phone." Gina says, "I've changed." And Cece says, "You realize the only one who has any affection for you is Brandon. Get the hell out of here." Gina leaves and says, "Well, thank you, Cece, for stopping me from making the biggest mistake of my life. I'm never going to hand over this tape until I get exactly what I want." So, the turn that Mason took last year with his 3 ghosts lasted even longer than Gina's few-hour turnaround. So,
in all frankness, we can sort of thank Cece a bit for pushing her back to her old ways.
Really is Cece's fault this time. I don't know what brought Mason back last time. Probably something Cece said to him, too. I don't know what kind of Christmas shows there are for them to milk next year. And on an unrelated note, we saw Chuck McCann on something the other day. He, after we finished the series finale of the Far Out Space Nuts, I think he was on like a Canon or a Rockford Files or something that we watched. So, and that is the end of the episode, and we had credits. This was a long credits. It was the full cast credits and the full crew credits, and they had a little wreath of holly around them for Christmas. And it was not the normal theme song. It was a Christmas song. And the credits, the cast credits were the same as last time, including our 2 characters who've left the show, as well as Brandon Capwell, played by Brandon Call, and Becky, played by Peggy Pope. And we finished week 126. We're moving along a bit faster than we have been in the past year. And we're going to start week 127 on Monday. And I don't know if we'll be doing that from here. Depends how much time we have tomorrow. But if we don't get it done, we will be doing it from a special location, which you can stay tuned to find out where that is. All right, we'll see you next week, or in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It belongs to me.
He doesn't belong to anyone. I love him, and I'm not going to let you ruin his Christmas. So why don't you go to the mountains alone? With any luck, maybe you'll be buried in an avalanche.